John Frazier, the director of NRA ILA's Research and Information Division, is with us. And John, thank you, sir, for coming on the program tonight.
Hey, Cam, always a pleasure.
So there's this really interesting piece in the Daily Caller today from Jeff Winkler, who's been doing a series of pieces about what folks need to know about the gun control debate in this country. The headline this time around, new gun control legislation would prohibit those arrested but not convicted of drug crimes from possessing firearms. This is the Fix Gun Checks Act of 2011. I guess it could be called the To Heck with Due Process Act of 2011?
Well, right. It's interesting. One of the many things in this bill. I mean, this bill that has a lot of components, including changes to the instant check system and requiring virtually every time a gun changes hands in the United States, even temporarily, to go through an instant check. But what Jeff Winkler's article talks about is a provision in the bill that as Schumer puts it, I think, is to clarify the definition of drug abusers and drug addicts. But actually, what it really does is change the definition of drug abusers and drug addicts.
And it changes it to greatly expand it.
Oh yeah. Basically, the idea here is one that I think most people would agree with, which is that people who are current users of illegal drugs should not possess firearms, and let alone drug dealers and so on, who are quite prone to violence when it comes to territorial disputes and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that it works under current law is that there's no definition in the statute of what is a drug abuser or drug addict, or as the technical phrase is, unlawful user of or addicted to a controlled substance. But the ATF has published a regulation that tells you what things can be used as evidence of that, and or as they put it, an inference can be drawn from various things, and that would include failing a drug test, or a conviction for recent convictions, and so on. And they do allow for arrests, but it has to be a series of arrests, and the most recent arrest has to be within the last year. And this is responding to court decisions that said, well, an unlawful user or addict has to mean someone who is a current unlawful user and addict, not someone who might have used drugs years ago and quit.
Okay.
So what Schumer would do would be to say, no, we're going to go back 5 years, and even a single arrest allows this inference of current use, regardless of what happened with the arrest.
I just got a talk back from one of our listeners, Pete in Amityville, New York, who says, Cam, I heard about this earlier. Years ago, I was arrested for, quote-unquote, drug possession for having my penicillin capsules in a plastic bag. I had broken the bottle. An overzealous ADA hit me with possession cocaine with intent to sell. Of course, right after reading these charges in the courtroom, he had to drop the charges because my doctor had sent a letter confirming my prescription. So Senator Schumer thinks that should make me prohibited. That's nuts, says Pete.
That is a classic kind of case, and in fact, if Schumer's bill were passed, that wouldn't necessarily, Pete wouldn't necessarily automatically be prohibited from possessing firearms, but he would certainly be at risk of an arrest. And if there was a court record of that arrest or a police record of that arrest, they would probably have to provide that to the instant check system.
Wow.
That's the classic kind of fact pattern. The person who was arrested wrongly.
Yeah.
He didn't have a controlled substance, so there was never any issue. But under the Schumer bill, that would be front and center on a person's record.
I mean, that's just so crazy. And the other aspect of this, John, now that I'm thinking about it, I mean, we've run across stories over the years of 16, 17-year-old high school students who have been arrested for having an aspirin at school. But that they've been arrested because they violated the school policy. Sometimes they had their prescription medicine that they had rather than give to the nurse. They had it in their locker and they faced arrest. If a 17-year-old has that happen, I mean, for 5 years, they're barred from owning a firearm. Or they could be barred from owning a firearm for, again, having prescription their prescription medicine on them. I mean, this just seems like, again, a classic attempt of turning in the wrong direction to try to make our streets safer. If that's what this is all about, boy, this is a really odd way of going about it.
Well, right, and obviously, obviously, this is a reaction to the Tucson murders, and where the accused killer has had an arrest record, but. I think that the more relevant thing to look at there would be the mental health issue and why no one pointed him towards the help he obviously needed.
Yeah, absolutely. As opposed to trying to create some sort of shortcuts in the criminal justice system.
Right, based on an arrest a couple of years earlier that had involved paraphernalia rather than drugs themselves.
Yeah, you're right. I think this completely neglects the real problem, which is that there were sadly a number of individuals who said we were upset, we were concerned about this behavior, but nothing was ever done.
Right, exactly. But speaking of things that people might hear about a person, another point on the Schumer drug provision is that he refers to. Another thing that an inference can be drawn from is admission to using or possessing a controlled substance unlawfully within the past 5 years. So, suppose a person does try illegal drugs and decides he doesn't like them, never touches them again, but admits to it later on. Well, an admission to whom? Is this really fair to be an inference? There's no court proceeding or anything of that nature.
Well, John, the devil's in the details with some of these bills, and I'm glad that you were able to come on the program tonight and talk about it.
I'm not the only person noting some of the devil's in the details. Was one of the interesting aspects of the Daily Caller article was that Paul Helms from the Brady campaign says he has some concerns about this. So,
oh, really?
So we're you and I are not alone.
Strange times indeed. John, thank you so much, sir, and look forward to talking to you again very soon.
Always a pleasure, Ken.
John Frazier, NRA ILA's Director of Research and Information.